I have a pleasure welcoming Professor Sharon Parker, whose paper, The Smart Model of Work Design, a Higher Order Structure to Help See the Wood from the Trees, written jointly with Professor Carolyn Knight, has been published in Human Resource Management. Sharon, welcome to this interview.
Thank you so much, Jelena. It's lovely to be here.
I will be asking you several questions today, and the first question is, why is your study important?
The study is about work design, and work design is about the tasks, the activities that people do in their work, the responsibilities that they have, and how those are organised and structured. And that's really, really important, especially these days. I know that in many countries, people have been talking about quiet quitting. We're seeing an epidemic of burnout, people leaving, people wanting more work flexibility, the ability to work from home. And work design is sort of fundamental predictor of those aspects. So we know, for example, when work is designed well, people are less burnt out, they're more engaged, they're more satisfied with their work. So it's a really, really important topic. Beyond that sort of general background, there are sort of two changes that are happening in the world that make work design even more important. And one is the implementation and design of new technologies. So we're seeing, of course, a massive acceleration of AI in the workplace. And what that means actually is, if you think about it, and the research suggests it's not so much whole jobs that are being replaced by AI, but it's the tasks within jobs. So what that means is that raises questions of, okay, who does which tasks? What tasks should AI do? What tasks and responsibilities should humans do? What controls should humans have, and so on? So work design is an absolutely fundamental issue when it comes to AI. And then the other big change that's happening in the world, which work design is really relevant for, is population aging. So we have an aging population, and that really puts a strong imperative economically, actually, on keeping people in work longer, because we've got this huge aging population and we need people to stay in work longer to support the aging people who often have health issues and those sorts of things. So and then that again has work design implications, because we need to be saying, well, what sort of work is going to help older people? We call them mature workers here in Australia. What sort of work is going to help older people, mature workers, stay in work and be healthy and productive in work? So it's a really critical topic on multiple angles.
What did you find in your research?
So I guess, I gave this definition of work design, that it's about the tasks, the responsibilities that people have and how they're organised. That can be sort of hard to understand. So one of the things that's happened in, more than 100 years of research on this topic is that we tend to look at certain aspects of work, and we call those work characteristics. For example, I've mentioned the importance already of control, autonomy over work. That's a work characteristic. What our study shows is that if we take all of the different work characteristics that are out there and that have been shown to be important, we can actually cluster them into 5, what we call higher order categories. So 5 clusters, I guess, of work characteristics. So those work characteristics, the first one is we call stimulating work characteristics. So that's the importance of having a bit of variety in your work, using some varied skills, having a bit of intellectual challenge, almost some problems that are difficult to solve, and so on. So stimulating work is important. The second category is called mastery. And this is the importance, I guess, of people going to work, but knowing what is it they should actually be doing. So having role clarity, being clear what it is they're expected to do, but also getting a bit of feedback from other people, but also from the job itself on how they are going in executing those roles and responsibilities. So the second category is mastery. The third cluster of important work characteristics is autonomy. And that means having autonomy or control over what you do in your work, the methods that you use, the timing of your work. So what the order you do your tasks and the schedule that you have, but also just generally being able to influence the important decisions that happen in your work. And then we move to the fourth category, and that's relational. And I guess this is fairly obvious. This is about those relational components of work. So having connection with other people. We know psychologically people want to belong. And I guess we learned that through COVID more than ever. People want to belong and connect to other people. So relational work characteristics are things like getting support from your supervisor, having support from your colleagues, and also this sense that you are making a difference to the lives of other people. So you're making a difference to the worlds of others. So that's relational. And then the final cluster is tolerable demands. And I often refer to this as the big one, because certainly in many workplaces around the world, we are seeing people having demands in their work that are not tolerable. In other words, having a lot of pressure on them and that becoming overwhelming and causing stress. So tolerable demands is about having reasonable workload. It's about making sure that your work is not interfering too much with your outside work life. And it's about making sure that you're not pulled in different directions, which is called role conflict. So those five big characteristics of work, I think what our research shows is that those, if you measure those five aspects, you're going to really capture the core aspects of work design that are psychologically important for people. And I think that the study just helps to make sense, I guess, of otherwise a quite confusing array of many, many different work characteristics.
Thanks for that. It's really amazing. There are so many different aspects of our work that affect us all. And I'm just trying to reflect whilst we are talking about these things, about my own situation, and I'm sure everybody can. So I'm actually now going to ask you about the actual theoretical implications for your research. Why does your research matter for theory, for knowledge? What are the theoretical implications of it?
Yeah, so our model, I guess, builds on some very well-established theories of work design. For example, you've probably heard of the job characteristics model. It was really one of the early theories of work design, and that also had 5 work characteristics. But actually, it also misses a few of the important ones. So, for example, the job characteristics model doesn't include any mention of demands. And yet we all know that demands in work are really critical. So our model is more theoretically complete than that model. And that makes sense, of course, because that was introduced in the 70s, and we've had a lot of research, since then, identifying many more aspects. Another very popular model in work design research is the demand resources model. And that's a fairly sort of overarching idea that there are demands in work and there are resources in work, which is a great and useful model. But resources is a very big category. Whereas in this model of work design, we say, well, actually, there are 4 really important types of resources: the stimulating, the mastery, the autonomy, and the relational. So in this case, it's a bit more, it refines the theory a little bit, and so on. So I won't go through all the theories of work design, but if you read the paper, you can see that we really draw on those foundational theories, but we also take the work beyond those theories. And I think what we end up with is a very comprehensive perspective on work design.
Thank you very much for that. And the final question is, what do your results mean for HR policy or the practice of HR?
Yeah, well, we're working a lot with practitioners, human resource practitioners, sometimes occupational health and safety practitioners, And there's a lot of interest in the topic of work design because, legislation, the law says that we should not cause harm to employers, should not cause harm to workers. And actually, if they've got badly designed work, that does cause harm. So good work design is really, really important now from a legal perspective, as well as a moral and a performance perspective and so on. So, but one of the things that we find when we're working with practitioners is if you look at the sort of existing literature on work design, as I mentioned, there have been more than 100 years of research. There have been more than, if you count them, there's probably 35 different aspects of work design that have been measured and shown to be important. And that can be pretty overwhelming for a practitioner. It's like, oh, where do I start? Which are the most important ones? So we find that this model of these 5 higher order categories or big themes is just really helpful to make sense of that complexity. The paper is called Seeing the Wood for the Trees, and I think that's a nice sort of metaphor. It really just helps focus on, well, if you've got limited space and you want to diagnose your work situation, you want to find out why people are leaving or quitting or why people are burnt out, you've got a sort of fairly simple model that you can apply to find out what are the critical work design issues. So we find that it just really helps simplify complexity. And that's important, right? Because people, human resource practitioners, they've got so many things they've got to be thinking about. It can really help to have an evidence-based way to make sense of complexity. Out there is a website that we've created, and there is lots of practical guidance and things freely available to practitioners on there if that's of interest.
I'm sure that people in industry will welcome this model as a starting point, as you say. And what to say, it's been a pleasure talking to you today. Thank you very much for coming to the interview.
Thank you, Helena. My pleasure also.